All right, all right, all right. We are back, and we got new people here. You can tell, like Ryan's like broken up into two people now, and
And there's no beard.
and no beard. Oh, John, I'm missing John.
Chris
Hold on a
is
second.
trying. It's okay.
Tyler,
Yes, I'm
you just
missing John.
needed this part so you could complete the fusion. Like,
Oh, that's
you know what
true.
I'm saying?
So all of a sudden, Ryan became I don't know what, a night elf still with the beard though. Somehow the night elf still has the beard.
Oh God.
I was like, let me fix John real quick. John, still a little bit off here. But while I'm doing that, guys, want to welcome Tyler Rosen and Chris Kelly to Climbing the Ladder, and both of these guys are involved with TeSPa. Tyler, you've probably seen in the past with his brother Adam. He's the president and co-founder of TeSPa, and Chris Kelly is the chief community officer for TeSPa. And big announcement from you guys. I think yesterday. Was it yesterday?
Yeah.
Yeah, yesterday. And you guys are rebranding first off, and then on top of that, you guys are going nationwide instead of just operating, I guess, within Texas, right, and the schools within Texas.
Yep.
So let's start off by talking a little bit about the rebranding. And Tyler, why don't you start off?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the rebranding kind of coincides with our big announcement and our big launch of kind of going nationwide. And the reason for that being that we thought that Texas name, Texas eSports, as we formerly were, was a bit limiting in terms of scope and kind of how far we could go. And since Adam and I and Chris graduated this last year, we really wanted to figure out a way to still be involved and still help the collegiate esports community grow. So that kind of motivated our movement to say, well, let's turn TeSPa into something that's even bigger and even better than what already exists. So essentially what we're doing is, and there's more details, I'm sure we'll go into more details in a couple minutes, but we're essentially going nationwide and we're trying to duplicate what we did on UT's campus at every single campus in terms of high schools and colleges across the nation. So it's a big lofty vision. We want all those schools to be able to host Lone Star Clash caliber experiences, but we're really passionate about it and we've set up a really good model which we think has a lot of potential.
Yeah, for those of you that aren't clear again with TeSPa, he just mentioned Lone Star Clash. They are responsible for the two Lone Star Clashes that we've seen. First one being a giant success. If those of you don't remember, Lone Star Clash was on the same weekend as Red Bull and got better numbers than the Red Bull event that weekend, which is what blew people's mind. John was there, helping to organize the whole thing too. And the second one was last year that we were both at, me and John also, which was, again, another successful tournament that had League of Legends there too, as well as StarCraft 2. So, yeah, so these guys are, the ones that I think have paved the way for either smaller organizations or even students, right, or creating these tournaments that are they're not top tier, but they're definitely mid tier, solid mid tier, mid to top tier, like competing against some of the big boys. So that's what's really, really cool about what TeSPA is doing, and it's pretty exciting to hear you guys going nationally now. I'm kind of showing the website here. You can see the new logo. So talk about the name now. So the name's not Texas Esports Association anymore, right?
Yeah, so the name is the eSports Association. I mean, as we built up our brand over the last couple of years, and we became pretty well known for Lone Star Clash 1 and 2, we decided that the TeSPa brand is something that we wanted to stick with. The word TeSPa is kind of synonymous with everything we've done. So we wanted to still be able to retain that brand's kind of recognition, but also steer away from just Texas. So after going through a list of long T words and having lots of lengthy discussions, we decided that the eSports Association was the best way to go. And we're kind of taking the Intel approach with this. We want to be known as TeSPa, just like Intel is known as Intel, and not the long words that they actually mean, which Chris knows.
I actually don't know that. Oh,
I don't
this Chris, yeah. I was like,
There's too many Chris's. Chris, what is it, like integrated?
Integrated
Save me here, buddy.
electronics.
just integrated
That was
electronics.
smart.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Well, that's simple. But yeah, that's kind of the approach with it. We wanted a whole new identity, but we still wanted to stay true to our roots and make sure that we kind of worked off of what we had done before, just so we could kind of jumpstart things.
So, Chris, have you been involved with TeSPA the entire time, or are you a recent addition? Whoa, shit, sorry about that, guys.
Oh, it's all good. My involvement, so I started out as a regular member like the very first semester 3 years ago when it began. Essentially through my friendship with Adam and Tyler was at the very first meeting. Did the icebreaker, all the cool stuff at UT when we were all there. And I was involved in several student organizations when TeSPa first began, and was kind of a member. For the last year and a half, I asked to get involved, kind of just kind of prior to the first Lone Star, which came as sort of a surprise to me, just because I hadn't heard about like the vision of it. I was actually roommates with Adam and Tyler during that year leading up to it, and they just sort of asked me, "Hey, would it be cool if a couple of guys from overseas just stayed at our apartment for a week?" And I was like, "Oh, sure. Who is it?" And they told me who it was, and I was somewhat a fan of esports, and I had been watching some tournaments with Adam and Tyler, but it really hadn't hit me yet until everybody kind of came there. And then over the next summer, I applied to be a director, and well, at Lone Star 1, I kind of got more involved in terms of organization, rather than just being a member and being part of the community. And then for Lone Star 2, I was one of the stage managers for StarCraft 2, and the volunteer coordinator for all the general volunteers, along with
Also,
one other.
Great.
So I just want to throw this in also. When we were, Adam and I were putting a lot of effort into Lone Star, and we were focusing a lot externally, talking to players, talking to sponsors, bringing everyone in. And because of that, we needed someone to really step up and cultivate the internal community. And Chris really excelled at that, and he really brought our community to a whole another level. And that's why we're so excited to work with him moving forward, because we feel like he has a lot of those really good community skills that can just make other communities blow up in the exact same way.
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
something that was, I guess one quick plug that I'll make is that I was really proud about at our school was that I started a family system, which is not too uncommon for student organizations, but TeSPa hadn't done it before. And it turned out to be largely successful, and it really like brought the community together. And I shout out to One Up Crew, which was my family there, if they're watching. And a lot of them volunteered at Lone Star, so they were heavily involved in TeSPa throughout the year, which is
What's a family?
really fun to see.
What is this?
So
I'm not familiar with
it's
this.
essentially, I guess I'll explain it briefly. So the family system was essentially a way for us to get to know all of our members faster and more on like a one-on-one basis, because our first meeting last year when we were at the university was, I don't know, maybe 160, 170 people signed in. And we're like, holy crap, how do we get to know everybody and retain that many members? So essentially what we did was we randomed everybody based on their application, and then tried to mix and match and make sure there weren't like too many high-level players in one family, and assign each of them a family head. And that family head was basically in charge of getting to know those members on a personal basis, and doing like fun social events. At every meeting, they would gather their family together in a group and do activities together, like during the meeting, to make it more interactive. And they would typically go eat dinner afterwards and stuff like that. So it was basically just a community building exercise that worked out really well throughout the year.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's cool. Definitely good to force people to sit in front of each other and talk to each other and eat each other. That's always good.
It's usually a good thing.
Yeah,
Actually,
yeah. I wish that would happen in more situations. Believe me, even in esports. So.
Yeah, I know that was kind of a big barrier that I figured we might face, is gamers just being a little bit shy and not knowing how to kind of get it started. So it really helped to kind of catalyze that, I think, and got a lot of conversations started, which is awesome.
Right, very good. I want to just jump right into a question that a lot of people have, which is, people that don't know TeSPa like we know TeSPa, and really understand how you guys are structured. Explain to everybody what the difference is between you guys and the College StarCraft League, CSL.
Cool. So it's actually really interesting. The Collegiate Star League focuses a lot on competition. They've kind of developed this system which pits universities against each other. They say at a university you can form a team, be it StarCraft 2, League of Legends, and within that for the semester you play down this large bracket and you essentially find out who the best team is. So there's a lot of competitive focus. What we're doing that's different with TeSPa is we feel like we need the community focus, and that's entirely what we're focused on. We're trying to build up communities at each and every college because we feel like communities are really the catalyst that will drive esports forward. People may transition from games to games, people may play competitively, they may play casually, but at the end of the day, the community is what binds everyone together, and that's kind of the lasting force that we want to create. So by encouraging these groups to make communities and to empower their communities to host really cool events and just build those relationships, we feel like we have a lot of kind of long-term lasting power that will really serve to enhance esports kind of on the aggregate. So that's the main difference, I would say, more of the community versus competitive. But with that said, I mean, competitive is a really important part of the community aspect.
Okay, yeah. So, from the standpoint of tournaments, with each of these communities, is like going nationwide, for instance. Do you want everybody to basically have a Lone Star Clash in each school, each state? I mean, what is really the goal?
So the idea is that every school may not be able to host a Lone Star Clash, right? I mean, some people have less time, they have less resources, they have more rigorous schoolwork. Maybe they just have less people. But at the end of the day, what we want to create is we want to create an environment where each of those groups, no matter how big they are, no matter how much time they have, they are empowered to create a Lone Star Clash caliber experience. And that doesn't mean a big tournament. It could be a really awesome community event. It could be a viewing party that's super innovative and builds those relationships. But that's really what we're getting at. We're getting at those caliber of experiences rather than it has to be a tournament. It's always about empowering the individual groups to do what they do best given their resources, and then really trying to develop their skill sets, give them resources, and teach them so that those things can be even bigger and better than anything they've done before. Does that sound about right, Chris?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think the main goal is to be able to take away some of the headaches of starting up an esports organization, or just some of the upkeep, and helping out with those resources so that schools are able to be creative and innovate and make new awesome experiences that, like Lone Star Clash, maybe it's not like a professional tournament or something, but something where people walk away from it saying that was my favorite event all year. That was awesome. I can't wait to go again.
John, what do you think of all this? I know.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, I know you and I have talked separately, and we've both talked with the twins about it in the past. I think it's awesome, and I think that what you guys are doing more specifically that makes it, in the way I see things, that will make it more long-term sustainable, is that you're concentrating on the community aspect of it as opposed to just the competition. And one of the problems that the CSL would have was that it's really limited to whatever games they decide to pick up. So, if I can tell you there's a few hundred people there at your college that are playing Call of Duty, right? They're not necessarily playing StarCraft 2 or League of Legends. So what you guys are doing is making it a community of gamers, not necessarily a community of StarCraft 2 or League of Legends fans. And I think that will go a long ways in kind of growing the whole idea of, and then we can push them into esports by just getting them more involved into that side of things. Because there's probably a lot of people that are joining your guys' clubs that for the first time are learning all about esports, right? I mean, they're there as kind of as something to do. It's no different than joining like the chess club, but they're joining the gaming club, and then all of a sudden they're opened up to this whole new world of esports, and that's where I've talked about before about bridging that gap, because there's gamers and then there's gamers that know about esports. So I think what you guys are doing is fantastic.
Yeah, I guess one more quick distinction to make is it's not about what I was talking about earlier, and going off of what you said, is that it's not just necessarily events, but it's also about the community and like what happens in between events, right? Like those organizers have to know how to plan meetings and work with their teams and create structures, right? So that's another thing that we're looking to help out with.
And there's something about you guys having like you said, I think looked on the website, like a 40-page guideline. And I'm sure that it touches on things like that. I mean, because one of the things, and I've had a few other colleges, after my experiences with Lone Star, come to me and say, "Hey, John, would you help us? We want to run something, smaller than Lone Star, but we want to do it at our college or whatever." And they put together documents, and I look through them, and sometimes they're really messy, and they don't have much direction with it. And what you guys are doing in this guideline, in this guide, basically, is outlining some of those things. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I mean, for them.
And I think that's something that's one of the most valuable things we're trying to do. Like over the last 3 years, we built up so much just knowledge, right? I mean, it's everything from like learning how do I host a meeting? How do I promote effectively on my campus? How do I talk to administration, make sure we get the most support we can from them? That kind of aspect to everything like how do I set up an actual network for an event? How do I make sure that I'm not going to blow out a circuit breaker when I hook up all these computers? All those little logistics is something that we've built up just essentially by trial and error, just trying and iterating kind of on top of each other. And we feel like one of the most important things for these groups is do everything we can to eliminate those barriers. There's several really important kind of barriers to entry that fledgling organizations face, and that's just because they haven't done it before or they lack the resources. So by eliminating those barriers or doing our best to like give them the information so that they can learn it and not make the same mistakes we did, then what we're doing is we're taking the emphasis off of, oh, I have to learn these hard lessons, I have to reinvent the wheel, where otherwise they could be kind of more free to innovate and to do things creatively. And I think once the groups kind of get past the, oh, we need to learn how to do this, and they get more onto the, okay, now that we know how everything works, how can we creatively make this a new event? How can we make this the best community experience possible? Right. Once they have the freedom to innovate rather than to just learn, then I feel that's when we're going to start getting some really cool esports experiences. And I think we'll be really surprised with what pops up that really drives the industry forward, because that's where it all starts. It all starts at the grassroots level. It all starts with that kind of creative spark. And once you can encourage
encourage. No. Oh.
Tyler, you still there?
Cat.
You still there?
The cat
Tyler? Tyler, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah.
Okay, sorry, you were breaking up there right at incur. Incur.
I totally finished that sentence. No, I was just saying, once you can encourage the creative outlet, then that's when we'll start seeing some really interesting things. So that's really what our kind of role as a support and a facilitating organization is right now.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to let you guys talk a little bit about it first, but what you guys do is is so incredibly great for esports and in our community, because we talk about StarCraft dying or whatever. We one thing that's really, really lacking right now is grassroots, right? And what you guys do is the definition of grassroots, because there's several things, right? You're creating a larger population of potential organizers, future people, future managers, future organizers, just jobs basically for esports, or people skilled in those jobs in esports. Because when they work these tournaments like Lone Star Clash, not only are they actually producing a professional level product, you've got people getting professional experience doing it too, and it's experience that they can put on their resumes, and they can really be proud of, and they can even get esports jobs because of, right? And secondly, the product that you create are actually, they're viable professional products. And one of the biggest issues in our industry right now is juggling expense and budget. We talk about all kinds of tournaments, home story cup, whatever those, tens of thousands of dollars, $70,000, $50,000. And I know Lone Star Clash wasn't cheap either. But the beauty of what you do is you're doing it in the structure of a university, of a college, and there are lots of resources that you alluded to just now that you can leverage. The school actually gives you money. The school actually gave you a discount, or actually let you have the venue for free in the first one, right? Is that correct? And that saves so much money, right? So,
because,
So anyways, like that budgeting, the budgeting issue is like probably one of the biggest issues for organizers. And I feel like having it in that realm of a school alleviates some of that. And on top of that, you're creating a community. You're creating, everybody's so involved with streaming and having all these viewers from the standpoint of just all of us at home watching it. But I'm more concerned about the people actually there locally, creating this kind of ecosystem on the campuses. And, the structure of the universities are perfect for that. We see a lot of these players starting to go to school now. Well, you guys in CSL totally support that. So you guys will still give them a viable place to be and still grow esports in that fashion. So, I was just kind of in my long spiel there, but I think it's incredible just the project that you're doing, and I've always told you that. So yeah. Anyway, so you're gonna say something.
And I've always been a big fan of structure from the bottom up, and this is no different than starting a little league. I mean, the reason that sports thrive, not real sports, but physical sports thrive, athletics, is because it has a structure underneath it. It has a base, and that's exactly what this is doing. It's providing a base. Although it's starting at the college level, I mean, like you guys said, it's not that you're not reaching out to high schools as well, but you're at least establishing a base that's underneath that top 1% of that get invited to the same tournaments over and over again. You're giving people an opportunity to do something, and you're doing it in a way that allows them to continue to do what we do in North America, which is go to college. Go to high school,
Yep,
go to college.
Exactly.
If you think about kind of the history, you mentioned like Little League, John, I totally agree. Like if you look at the history of a lot of kind of modern sports or traditional sports inside the academic setting, it's all lots of sports have become popular because they've been ingrained in kind of the culture of academia. Yep. They've been, I mean, you can play football in middle school, you can play baseball in elementary school, but that's really how it started, and that's why they're so popular in kind of the mainstream culture, because people have grown up with it, right? They've seen it their whole high school career. It's been idolized. It's been, let's go play this, right? So once you can fully ingrain esports into that academic culture, not only in the college space, but in the high school space and even below, maybe a UIL style thing, anything like that where you encourage that competition because of the great benefits it has, not only for the scene as a whole, but really because those students can actually develop themselves. That's what I think it's going to really ingrain esports into our fundamental culture and really drive everything forward.
I think one people that
bring that up too.
Oh, Chris, go ahead.
Oh, maybe there's some.
No, go ahead.
Sorry, real quick. I wanted to play off of something that you said earlier, Chris. I'll actually be a little bit of a devil's advocate
sure.
to you about what we're doing. You mentioned earlier about like the infrastructure that universities tend to be able to provide, like there's facilities and stuff, but there's also challenges there because there's still, believe it or not, there still is some resistance from school administrations, both the high school, college, like everywhere, right? Like not every college knows about esports or,
or take it seriously.
They don't. But you guys have the proof of concept now. I mean, you guys can always show them season 1 and 2, and like, hey, look, we generated X views. We generated actually revenue from this. The entire staff were all students, and they worked the production room. They worked the building of the stages. I mean, all that stuff, right? When John's helped too, obviously.
Exactly.
but
John's a student.
They were supervised by professional people too. But when you guys did the hard work, and have done that. So it's got to be easier for the other. I guess I'm going to call them chapters. Like to actually.
And it may be harder to sell. And it's funny that you just said that. And what I was going to talk about was just my own experiences. I am a student, actually. I am going back to college. I have 2 classes left. And it's just a small community college. But and I've said this before in other shows that I see esports very similar to my experiences in Frisbee golf. I was a disc golf player. And I have presented my small college with the idea of setting up like a disc golf league or a tournament for the college. And in disc golf, in Frisbee golf or disc golf, whatever you want to call it, very similar thing. They started to realize that by getting into high schools and colleges, they were attracting new players that knew nothing about the competitive side of things, but just, hey, here's this game that we get to play. Well, the colleges were very receptive, and including the small college I'm talking with now, I told them about a tournament I wanted to run, and they're like, yeah, we'd love to have something like this, because the idea of getting students more involved with activities that are on campus is just something they're very much approve of. But like you said, it's a hard sell for gaming, and so maybe a lot of probably what you guys are putting together are ways to approach the schools, and that's very valuable to people that don't have that experience. They just think, hey, I'm just going to go to the dean or whatever. I'm going to be like, hey, we want to run an esports event, and the dean's going to look at them like, what's an esports event? And they're like, oh, video games,
Exactly.
And then you're right there. You're 2 strikes in, because these are not things that people in academics consider to be very valuable, and so you have to find a way to sell it to them. And I think that what you guys have done is twice now you have found a way, and you can turn that around and show other people exactly how that can be done.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
and we're
That's our whole mission. Is sorry, real quick, Tyler. I was just say
no,
to
go for it.
respond to that is that even though I mentioned that as a challenge that we're definitely working towards helping solve, it's about creating those precedents and at all kinds of universities to get it to the point where they're like, oh, you guys are the esports club. All right, what days are you looking at having your event? Instead of having that tougher conversation starting out. Go ahead, Tyler.
Having a national organization, I think, will lend a lot of legitimacy to it.
Yep.
We're also looking at ways. I mean, I know every college is different, and this is something that we've learned really recently, trying to work with different schedules and different kind of administrations and such. Every college is different. Every high school is different. So having some sort of fundamental package that we can give administration through all these different kind of levels of academics and show them exactly what this is about. It's not only people playing games. It's people learning. It's people developing themselves. It's entrepreneurship in action. That's kind of how we're pitching it. So having some sort of national body that can help facilitate those kind of discussions, I think is really going to help that as well.
Yeah, you're giving. I mean, let's just go down into some more detail again. Like, what you're going to be showing with these packages are things like putting proposals together. I don't have people have been watching the show. I mean, one of our first shows, we talked about your proposal that you were giving out for Lone Star Clash 1 and how amazing it was. Bitter used to be part of the show, right? And we were raving about how it was, and we were basically linking it to everybody, right? Everybody was looking at your proposal. So doing professional proposals, approaching sponsors, right? Even local sponsors or even bigger sponsors. I mean, you guys have done too, right? And you guys are going to be just blueprinting all that out for all these people that don't know how to do it. Something analogous is just kind of like the Barcraft thing recently too, right? Like Blizzard and I think it was Cable, right? Cable, they put together like a Barcraft kind of guide and how to do the Barcrafts. And for me, I'm organizing a Barcraft too. And that was extremely helpful because it was a little bit of an enigma for me. And sure, I could go through the time. I could spend a ton of hours trying to figure it out myself. But why do that when the wheel's already been invented and you guys are documenting it, right? And actually providing a resource that makes it super easy for organizers. So that's why I think this is really, really great. And how have you added a lot of people on staff, or are you guys? I mean, how are you doing this? Because it's going to get pretty crazy.
Yeah, so far we have 4 basic staff we're working with, which we've been working for the last 5 months to kind of develop this model. As we begin getting more and more schools joining our network, we're going to have to look at more staff and kind of facilitate those logistics and those relationships. But so far it's just been kind of a core group. We want to keep it small, at least for the very start of it, so that we have a very coherent vision. We're making sure we're taking all the steps to actually make everything we promise come to life. We don't want to overpromise, but at the same time, we want to be able to give a lot. So we think by having a small staff that's all thinking the same way and all kind of on the same page, go, will really help us with that. But yeah, for sure, like as we grow, we'll definitely have to expand. And we're already looking at bringing a couple people in, so.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So talking about, I guess, how to participate. Like, how does somebody actually, like, let's say somebody at, I don't know, University of Florida here, or down here, or Miami or something like that, if they wanted to create, I guess, what are they? I mean, are they actually chapters of TeSPa, or are they, or is just TeSPa just assisting them in growing it? Like, I don't know actually how the structure works exactly for new organizations.
So I'll give you the short answer and then the long answer. The short answer is www.tespa.org. So there's a bunch of information on there.
Yeah.
There's basically that's like how we're able to interface with everybody, right? Is through Skype, through email, online, because it's so widespread and it's hard to physically be in all these places at once. Mm-hmm. So on our website, we have up there a kind of like an inquiry of interest, a local chapter application, and right. To answer your other question as well, it is we have the 4 of us who are like a board of directors, and there's also a page on there about us and it explains our structure and everything. So there's our small core group that Tyler talked about, who is basically building all this right now, and then there are local chapters who are official chartered organizations that we are actively working to support. Currently, we have a communities page, which is the 3rd tab on the website, and that shows all the chartered organizations. Mm-hmm. And we also have a bunch of other conversations going to help and different relationships going with other universities to work on those and get them to be sort of official. Basically, we have the way that you can get involved is the next page. We're trying to connect students to their local chapter if they don't know that it exists on their campus already, and then connect existing and new local chapter type groups to TeSPa on the same page.
I see.
With
yeah, I see
the
right
the
here.
application.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so-
actually.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's actually kind of blown us away. These last 2 days, we've had, I think, something like 15 new applications to become local chapters just since our announcement. So there's definitely a lot of, we've been really impressed by the interest of everyone wanting to get involved with this as well. So definitely, if you're an organization out there looking to get involved in the network, check out that stuff that Chris just mentioned, because it might be just for you.
Yeah, well, I'm actually on the webpage right now, guys. You guys can
Okay,
see,
yeah.
so you can see all the stuff. That's cool. So you guys are kind of like the portal to all the school pages. That's cool.
And our front page is essentially the main focus of it is to highlight the community and what's going on at different universities. So highlighting events, highlighting whatever they're up to, new programs, etc.
Yeah. So how does the media side work? So videos are you just gonna like be collecting videos from all the different chapters and just creating a big old video library here, I guess?
The back end of the site is actually really interesting. So every chapter, when they become an official chartered local chapter of TeSPa, they get their own portal, right? And if you go to communities like we saw, all those are official portals. So the way the back end works is we can essentially pull anything that they put on their website, be it news articles, be it photo galleries, be it videos,
nice. Okay.
and we can highlight them on the main page. So the website is kind of two functions. It's one, to encourage the collaboration between different groups, but otherwise it's meant to highlight the really cool things that each and every group is doing. And that way it kind of encourages oh, that's really cool. How can we duplicate that? Or even better, how can we one up that? So really get good visibility for groups that are doing really good things, even if it's a smaller organization that might not have so many eyes on it, and highlight it for everyone to see.
Yeah, I would probably sum up the focus of it in a couple of main functions. One is to catalyze the spread of new ideas, like you mentioned, and the other is to increase like visibility for the chapters. So.
Okay, great. From the standpoint of, you guys, it's kind of the same thing I was asking Ryan, right? Like, you guys aren't, I don't think, are doing this for free, right? I mean, are with the intentions of like never making any money from it. So, what is your plans for that? Like, what is your business model for TeSPa? Is it purely sponsorships, or do you see application fees or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, so right now we're operating as a nonprofit. I mean, we're not making money on this. Eventually, when the network's large enough, it would be great to be able to sustain ourselves with it. But our passion really is in growing this network and really making esports come to the next level and succeed. So, I mean, there's a couple different revenue streams, if you will, that we can eventually kind of work ourselves into. The first would be entrepreneurship grants. We think that's a really interesting way to fund these organizations that are essentially acting as little corporations, right? Really encourage them to do what they do best by getting them attention of like large national groups that are trying to encourage exactly what they're doing. We think that's a really interesting way. Another revenue stream would be sponsorships, connecting. I mean, one of the problems we have when we were starting off is we as an organization, let's say our first year, let's say we had 100 members, us trying to approach an AT&T saying, hey guys, we're important, we'd like some funding for our tournament, it doesn't work so well. You really have to have that notoriety. So we're hoping that as we have a large enough network, we'll start attracting the attention of these larger sponsors and be able to negotiate on behalf of all these groups. And that way we can really facilitate the transfer of these guys are all doing something really cool. Let's make sure that they're supported for it, essentially, from those sponsorship funds. So that's another way. There's a lot of really interesting things that we can eventually get into. Another thing that we want to get into is we want to connect these talented students. At the end of the day, our vision is if you go through a TeSPa chapter, say you start at high school, you work your way up, you graduate high school, you go to college, you're in TeSPa all throughout college. Through that 8-year span, you've developed so much professionally that you're ahead above any other student unless they've done something very similar. So that really leads us into recruiting, and something we really want to do is be able to connect these top leaders of TeSPa branches.
Oh, I see. Get them jobs, kind of thing.
Yeah, I
new
think
high
that's
tech,
dope.
even if it's like a
There it
Microsoft or a
is.
Google, that's
Yeah.
something else really interesting. So there's a lot of things that we eventually want to get into, but we're huge fans of iteration, right? Start small, make sure we have the foundation,
Love
make
it.
sure we're actually able to provide, and then grow, grow, grow. And that's kind of the reason behind the application for this first kind of spread for local chapters and such too. But I feel like there's potential in the long run. It's just growing into it.
Love it, love it, love it. John knows how much I love iterations. So good stuff, good stuff.
So-
Yeah, I mean it's really cool. From this, you mentioned AT&T and trying to land like giant sponsors, and I'd mentioned this to you a long time ago, just over in passing that, when creating this kind of large overseeing organization with all these chapters is that each of those chapters are going to accrue sponsors, right? And they're all under the TeSPa name. So in the end, when you approach at AT&T, it's like, hey, AT&T, I've got like 1,000 local sponsors, and I mean, usually just have like sheets and sheets of lists of sponsorships. So it makes it easier. I mean, that task is not very easy to begin with, so it makes it a little bit easier to show that you've got so many sponsorships for the organization, whether it's the chapter or just the overall all overseeing entity. So it's really, really cool. Very, very cool. Well, you guys mind taking some questions? Is that cool?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
All
let's
right.
do it.
All
Sounds
right.
like fun.
Guys, if you have any questions for not Adam, Tyler or Chris or
I
John or
know.
myself,
Done.
I don't even know why
It's
I
even
said that.
confusing
It's
that his name's right
I don't
there.
even know why
on the, on
I
Skype.
Get outta
even
here.
said that. It's like,
that
but anyways,
It's
you got
okay,
any
we have two
questions for
Chris's.
us?
It's-
That's true. That's true. Go ahead and add me on Skype. My Skype ID is ChanmanV, and I will add you on here, and
Oh,
we will
I-
have you live.
I did get a question.
Okay,
Go ahead,
for it.
though.
Shoot it. No,
You
we
want
don't.
to finish telling people how to do it?
Hi, other Chris Kelly.
Yeah. Yeah. So Chris Kelly's the hello from Chris Kelly, nice. No, go ahead, John. I think I already told him. Just add me on Skype, ChanmanV, and I'll bring you in the call, and you can ask your question.
Okay. This question comes from Skype, actually, directly to me, and he wanted to know, how does the new WCS broadcast blocks affect events like the Lone Star Clash or the events that you'll be encouraging your chapters to put on?
Okay,
So-
so I mean,
In regards to StarCraft 2, obviously.
yeah. I think for the larger events, we'll at least be aware of on kind of a national organization level. So having those connections to publishers make things a lot easier to schedule, right? The last thing that we want to do right now is encourage conflicting events because it hurts everybody, right? It doesn't help. So us having that connection to certain publishers and to other organizations that host tournaments, we hope will help facilitate those relationships and trying to encourage people to not schedule on top of each other for these big major functions. But I mean, aside from that, a lot of the events the local chapters are doing don't necessarily need to be streamed. Like, say it's a viewing party, say it's a meeting, all kinds of stuff like that won't compete necessarily with these larger organizations. So I don't think there's too much concern for it, but once the larger events start happening, which they inevitably will, it's we're hoping that we can really encourage that let's work together and make sure that we all win kind of situations.
Okay.
Yeah, I think for large events, as Tyler said, just coordinating and making sure that, if there's let's say there's WCS, so we'll try to help other organizations not plan a StarCraft specific event over top of something like that, right?
Yeah.
Or like that, another pick your poison event.
Yeah, that's the last thing we need.
I have a follow-up question to that from actually another person, but just listening to what you said here. The question is, if each university event is relatively small and stream numbers will be small, which we know in most cases they probably will be, comparing LCS with Day 9 casting and the overflow from MLG would be unfair. So he's asking, do you see that it could be like an eSports, this is actually kind of more of a suggestion than a question, I guess, like you would have an eSports week per semester, and even though it would be twice a year during the school year, and you would do all the universities that you have in the association would basically run an eSports week for a full week. It would be all about eSports at every university at the same time. He says although this would be logistically crazy, there would be plenty of time to downtime to prepare. So it's a kind of a question and kind of a suggestion at the same time. It's a good one though, actually.
Yeah,
I think it's a
I
good
mean,
one.
I think it's a really interesting idea, right? I think there's a lot of really interesting ways we can work with this schedule, and I think Chris can answer this a little bit more because he's worked specifically with a lot of organizations that have done national weeks per se, where lots of festivities, lots of events, all in the single thing. So, Chris, do you want to talk to us a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I guess just to go off a little bit and explain what Tyler just mentioned was I was really involved in the engineering council at UT, and I helped run
Nice.
a week-long event, and it's definitely really rewarding to do something like that, to do something that has that kind of sustained carryover from day to day, and also to have events that run the whole time. So I think that's a really interesting idea. I think as far as from our national level, we're not really we may do something nationally like that, or do like a big one weekend event. But in terms of what the local chapters are going to do, we're mainly just trying to encourage them to innovate and just give them as many ideas as possible, and then they kind of have the creative flexibility to do what they choose, you know. So it's kind of up to the chapters, I would say, if they if they hear this idea, or if we propagate something like this, work out a structure for them, or even just say, hey, this is National TeSPa Week or one day,
Dude, even if it's
that would
just
be really cool.
even if it's just a day or a weekend, there's something very powerful about convergence. And
Oh, definitely, yeah.
you know, when we have such big numbers, we have a lot of people, and a lot of times in a lot of different aspects. Like one thing for me, it's always been like the StarCraft 2 arcade, right? A lot of people playing different arcades games all the time at different times and that sort of thing. But the big thing is like bringing everybody together at the same time, and it actually creates something pretty powerful. And I think that could be really great. You have these chapters. All you have to do is choose one day. It's like they can create and innovate as much as they want, but one day, just do it all of And
I think it's a really
definitely.
cool idea.
We have talked a little bit internally about that, and I think once we kind of have all of our initial group of chapters together, we're planning on having meetings with all of the leaders together, or at least by region, as the year goes on, to talk about cool ideas for collaboration like that. If anything, at least online like internal, maybe for fun competitions or just play times or something like that. If people are interested in that idea, it'll be a bit of a polling process. But something else I want to mention is I also think that in-person interaction is super important for just community in general and for TeSPa. And something that we really want to do within the next year, so possibly as late as next fall, is to have an annual TeSPa convention where we invite at least the leaders, if not just any member who kind of wants to come down, to have a big event, either BYOC, a big tournament combined with talks and leadership breakouts, like things like that. We have a ton of ideas of what we want to put into that. The details are just yet to be decided, but I know that having that in-person convention would be really huge for us.
Yeah, I mean, it energizes, but it also kind of encourages people to grow. And when you bring those two things together, I mean, you can't lose, right?
Well, it's also a venue for people to collaborate and people to share ideas that have worked for their chapters. I mean, I know you set up the website and people can go to it, but it's not the same. It's not the same as actually, like you said, physically being there, setting up seminars, and that sort of thing, and having people share their success stories.
Yeah, well, for one, we are an esports organization, and we're going to be hoping to teach people about esports-specific event information. There's also a huge part of it, which is just teaching about leadership. So that's also something that I think we can do, is have people come together and have, like I said, like breakouts, collaborating in different rooms, like per topic, that kind of thing, as well as just general like motivational leadership talks, etc. for raising all the leaders of the organization up another level.
Absolutely. Where are the questions, guys? I don't even see questions. If you have if you don't want to get on Skype, just go ahead and type the questions in stream chat, and I'll be sure to ask them. So that's pretty good when you have no questions, man. Just covered it all, right?
We can try to respond to J Dong 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 Dong.
John J Dong 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 Dong. Actually, Tempo is in Tempo in the chat. Yeah, but
I see. Would it be cool?
Dude, you know what we need is we need more of
Oh,
that.
yeah.
We need more of the Korean club at all the campuses doing some K-pop dances at the tournaments like
God.
Lone Star Clash 2.
That
Oh
performance
my
still
God.
haunts us.
That was
Still haunts you.
Oh boy.
that was an experience, man. That was an experience.
That was actually one of my favorite things about both Lone Star Clashes, and what I, being a lot more involved on the second one, wanted to bring to it was just having fun with it. Because we weren't like necessarily like a corporate or massive tournament, we could kind of get away with like just kind of doing whatever we wanted to make it interesting and not just people playing.
You can get away with more. They just don't want to get away with it. They just don't want to do it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
We have
Raise.
a brand to worry about
Yep.
too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Raise two.
okay, we can't totally wreck the brand, but we can have a little fun. We're college.
For
Exactly.
sure.
Exactly. Raise 281 asks, will there be a Lone Star Clash 3?
There will be. We'll be pretty honest and say this semester, for the rest of the year, fall kind of 2013, we're really trying to focus internally. Getting this network up off the ground and being able to deliver on all of our promises is something that's really important to us. So for the next couple of months, that's something we're going to be focusing on a lot. Just trying to make sure we grow the network, we develop it. But come spring 2014, you can absolutely bet there will be a Lone Star 3, and we are excited, just as excited as you guys are.
Awesome. Let's see, two more questions and we'll wrap it up. One more is Salvin asks, would you consider cooperating with a European university?
Oh, absolutely. I think going internationally is a step we want to take eventually, but it comes down to kind of the iteration, right? There's a lot of things we're doing that are logistically tricky, as in, like, for example, shipping out equipment. Like, there's a big equipment inventory, and schools can essentially say, I want to rent 100 switches, 100 Ethernet cables, and a couple streaming computers from it, right? So starting small and starting out of these kind of central regions that we have allows us to facilitate those logistics more easily. But once we've mastered that, totally, the world is the limit. So.
Okay, last question. Sorry, guys, we got to wrap. Me and John have pretty hard stop here, but Dowming has a question about scholarships. I think it's a pretty obvious a question, given that all this stuff revolves around colleges and universities. So, is scholarships a big priority for you guys, setting up some type of mechanism, whether it's like people in the organization, leaders in the organizations, or it's even players in some regard, winning or being able to get scholarships?
Oh yeah, I could say that. So I think obviously based on all the things that we've kind of been saying, we're really trying to encourage people to go above and beyond and be able to excel not just at esports but also in their collegiate career. So I think that scholarships would be really important, and there's something that we want to focus on as soon as we possibly can, after kind of covering all of our foundational, our basics. It's something we want to add on, because I think that's a really great way to both encourage and reward those people who showed great leadership and are able to balance all these things, right? That's also something that will help in creating those precedents that we were talking about earlier for talking to those administrations, both high school, college, etc., and showing that people can do both of these things. They can play video games, they can organize video game tournaments, and do well academically.
To kind of add on to that and to teaser a bit, we will be dipping our toes in scholarships this fall, so look out for that, because
Nice.
I totally agree with what Chris said. It's definitely something that's coming. So
Yeah, so not only do you get experience, guys, you actually have a chance to have your tuition paid for, or at least some of your tuition paid for too. So don't really see any downsides to all this. But John, you got anything? Before we wrap up?
I'm excited to see it, see how it plays out, and I'm sure it will be great.
Awesome. But Tyler, Chris, thanks for coming on. I mean, what better way to have two Longhorns on the show? I don't, outside of
Cheers to
Adam, exactly. Outside of Adam and Tyler, I mean, it's very, very rare. I'm gonna have two Longhorns. We're gonna outnumber the rest of the people. So 3-1 here.
Got it.
John. But
it was a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
You guys have any
Definitely, yeah.
shout outs, thank yous, or anything you want to say to fans? We'll start out with you, Chris.
Oh, definitely. I mean, shout out to all the chapters that we have, everyone who's been supporting us and giving us great reception online, offline, etc. Thanks to everybody. We, obviously everybody says this, but because we're a community, we definitely couldn't do it without all of you.
Awesome. Tyler?
Yeah, I mean, I think Chris summed it up best. I mean, thank you to everyone who's involved already, who has given us their trust and making something really cool happen. And thank you to the guys that have actually helped us build it so far. Jerry specifically was super helpful to us in designing the website. So definitely, if you know a Jerry Lou, give him your thanks. Other than that, I mean, the community is awesome. So thanks for everyone for being involved.
John?
I don't really have any today except for these guys and for what they're doing and for what Gameheart's doing. That's about it for me.
Okay, awesome. For me, yeah, just Ryan, Tyler, Chris for coming on the show. I think this episode was fun, amazing, and we've too many shows recently just talking about WCS, whether good or bad, and just the pro level. That we need more episodes talking about this side of it. Just the grassroots, the lower end, and you guys are one of the only folks doing large initiatives in this sector, which is a great opportunity for you guys, but we need more, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So folks out there, people, perspective organizers and that sort of thing, do it. Just go and do it. Do a barcraft, go do a LAN. Just it's not like day 9 now. Just do it. And just see how it goes, because again, we could use a ton of small events locally and that sort of thing. That's going to help grow esports, guys, believe it or not. Like, I don't want to.
That's how it all starts.
Yeah, that's how it all starts. We don't have to just wait for the top to make things happen. So a lot of people are kind of falling out of the top, right? So we need they need something to kind of catch them too. So do that sort of thing, and that'll be great. Next week, guys, I'm going to be at a wedding on Thursday. My sister's wedding is next weekend, so I'm going to have to fly out to Houston for that. But I'm going to try. I'll talk to you, John, about it. But I'm going to try to do a Wednesday show, depending on if we can get a certain somebody on the show. So I'll let you guys know if that happens. But if not, we might skip next week, and then I think DJ Wheat's on the following week. We're going to be talking about raising generation esports, which is like raising kids in this generation that we have. So that should be a lot of fun. But if you missed the show or want to watch any of our past shows, we've had 68 past shows. You can go to youtube.com/ChanmanV. I'll put it in right here. Didn't get a chance to upload the part 1 this time around because I was so crazy engrossed in the conversation today with just all of our guests, but I will upload it immediately after in probably 2 parts. If you enjoyed this show or Wednesday Night Sprites or Unfiltered, go ahead and follow the Twitch channel. I definitely would appreciate that. Subscribe for any cool, fun subscriber events and supporting the show. But other than that, guys, for Tyler Rosen, Chris Kelly, John Clark, and myself, ChanmanV, we will see you next week, hopefully. Later.
All right, thanks, guys.
See ya.
Yeah, thanks, guys.